automation and technology is best used when it is supporting human creativity and human relationships. And it never does well when it tries to replace human relationships or human creativity.
I think it's definitely going to separate realtors, though. It's going to make the cream come to the top in an industry where for $300, you're into a market. And a lot of people, everyone has to claw their way to the top to get to the top. But, that's a big 80-20 or 90-10 industry. And so I think this technology is going to help separate people. And so if you're not ready for that, you might be kind of sinking onto the bottom. And if you're ready for it, then it's moving you up to the top.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews and I'm here live on the line with Kristina. Kristina, are you there?
I am here. How are you?
Awesome. I am glad to be here. Glad to have you here. For those of you guests who are following along with my travels, my wife and I are currently stuck in St. Louis getting our radiator worked on at a repair shop. Super fun to do that, to live in a on a repair lot. But anyways, that's where we're all right now. And for those of you who don't know Kristina, let me take a couple of seconds and introduce you to her. So Kristina is a self-proclaimed real estate entrepreneur. You've been a dedicated real estate professional in California for your entire adult life, and you've sold in San Diego, Orange County, Santa Cruz, and apparently relocated to the East Bay and rebuilt your business from the ground up. So what I want to sort of start off with in the interview is, what is it that you're known for now? Why do people come to you? What's your specialty in the marketplace? What is it that that you do? What makes you you?
So I think finally I'm getting known for what I want to be known for, and that's being a little bit different than other realtors. It's taken me quite a while, and I had to go out on my own in order to get that recognition. But now that I've been kind of pedaling away at this for my first year, I have my first year under my belt. I'm definitely known as being just completely different alternative from what people consider the traditional realtor services.
So you said first year, but you also said your entire adult life. So I assume you're saying first year in this new market. Is that right?
No, actually, so first year going out on my own, 100%. I mean, realtors
Oh,
are,
so you're
by
not under a
definition,
brokerage anymore.
Not technically. I'm under kind of a hybrid, brand new technology centered white label brokerage. So they're serving me. I'm not serving them. But essentially in my marketplace, I'm out on my own with my own brand and my own plan and my own sort of vision.
Awesome. Yeah, we actually have a lot of connections in the real estate space. My best friend and business partner on a few ventures works with his company's called Real Estate Growth Hackers, and he does consulting for real estate agents. I know he works with some big names, Kevin and Fred out of from Next Level Agents, and Brett Tanner down in Arizona. Anyways, a couple of people in this space. So anyways, it's an interesting space to be in, and I know for you guys particularly, the changes in technology over the last 10 years or so have really morphed your business. So I'm just curious, how has that sort of been affecting you? Everything from like Zillow coming in and trying to take over business, and other things like that have really changed the face of the realtor space. How have you been sort of taking advantage of that and morphing your business to fit with the times?
So I'm in the Bay Area. So, as far as a realtor being affected by technology, I think we're right in the mix. I'm also
Yeah,
pretty heavily
definitely.
involved. Oh, yeah, we're in the mix. So we see everything first here. We're the testing ground for a lot of companies first here. And so for me, I love it. I think it's fascinating. I don't feel intimidated by technology, but I kind of try to just like pull it all in and just figure out like what I can use and who I can talk to. And it's just actually been very exciting. I'm actually backed by a technology company, so I'm an independent broker, but I've got kind of a very interesting brokerage model behind me called Side Inc. And I don't want to get into too much because that's a whole discussion on its own, but it was just named the second most innovative brokerage in America. And basically, it's this invisible technology that supports top producers in their marketplace so that the top producer can own their own company without getting bogged down behind a desk doing all of the traditional brokerage stuff. So I love all the technology, and I just try to maintain as many relationships as I can within the property tech community.
Mm-hmm.
And besides a lot of things I wish realtors would do, I wish realtors would get more immersed in what's coming our way, because it's never going to
Yeah.
replace the realtor, which is the big fear, like the realtor is going to be replaced. I don't see that happening at all. It's just that the realtor needs to embrace it before being replaced.
Yeah, one of the things that I talk about regularly I've got a business that helps other businesses build systems and processes. That's called Push Button Process. But anyways, one of the things I talk about regularly is that automation and technology is best used when it is supporting human creativity and human relationships. And it never does well when it tries to replace human relationships or human creativity. At least not yet. It's probably a long ways off before it does. So it's interesting to hear you say that in your space where you're seeing a lot of these big disruptions in the marketplace, saying there's never going to be a replacement. There's still going to be room, and probably essential room for the realtor to stay and be a big part of that transaction.
I think it's definitely going to separate realtors, though. It's going to make the cream come to the top in an industry where for $300, you're into a market. And a lot of people, everyone has to claw their way to the top to get to the top. But, that's a big 80-20 or 90-10 industry. And so I think this technology is going to help separate people. And so if you're not ready for that, you might be kind of sinking onto the bottom. And if you're ready for it, then it's moving you up to the top.
Absolutely. So you mentioned when you're saying what you're known for, that you were really trying to be different. What are some of the things that you're trying to bring to the table as to be a different type of realtor, be something that's offering something unique to your marketplace?
So my primary drive and passion actually came from a near complete emotional meltdown. When I came to the East
Nice.
Bay, really, it really did. I came to the East Bay 5-6 years ago now, and at the time I was getting married and I was pregnant, and I was just looking around in a panic thinking, I have got to build this business faster than ever. And so, I was like looking around, trying to work hard, work smart. I've always built all of my businesses with handwritten letters, and to this day I do that. So I talk about technology,
Nice.
but I don't ever remove the personal stuff. And I built my business just kind of in a pretty traditional way. And about a year and a half into it, a couple things happened. I can skip over those, but I realized that I needed to be with a luxury firm, a name brand firm, like a big firm. And I made the jump. And after being in real estate for years, for me, it was a big deal, thinking, oh, now I'm going to be a luxury realtor. And I did it, and I got in, and I went to a good company, and a very traditional company, family-based, quite a large company, a regional company. And I was very, very, very disappointed and very depressed. I just got in, and once I was behind closed doors, I thought to myself, wow, I can't believe that this is the pinnacle, like in our industry. A lot of the processes weren't working for me. A lot of the structures weren't working for me. Like, there was no room for innovation. At one point, I started crying, and my manager told me, Kristina, you don't even want to be that successful because you don't want to have a payroll like so-and-so. Or she told me, oh, this is a yacht.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, this is a cruise ship, not a yacht. I mean, I was in tears. I was unhappy. I felt really stuck. And in our industry, in real estate, all over the country, I feel like realtors really do feel like, hey, I'm at this brokerage and it's not that great, but moving over is also not that great, or moving here is not, like, it's always just the lesser of the evils in the brokerage world. So while I was sort of having these experiences internally, I was very successful externally. But at the same time, I felt like the brokerage wasn't supporting me because they weren't giving me a comfortable place to work while paying desk fees. So I was working at a coffee shop while producing $28 million in sales in 2018. And that's being new to my marketplace. I mean, that's pretty healthy no matter how long you've been somewhere, but that's new to the marketplace. I mean, and I was just working, and I was working for a coffee shop, and I was paying commissions. I'll tell you that I paid $170,000 out in commissions that year.
Yeah.
So, you know, this frustration was adding to that frustration. But then the final experience that I had was I started also looking at the real estate office, and I realized, like, this is so wasteful. Like, this is really wasteful. You know, it's always empty. Realtors will arrive on a Monday, they'll drink coffee, they'll listen to a presentation that's, I don't know, maybe not that interesting, especially in the world of podcasts where we can listen to anything we want at any given time.
Yeah.
And I noticed that this real estate office is also empty. And in the Bay Area, space is at a premium. So things started really turning and cooking and turning, and I wanted the real estate office to actually start serving the community. And by that, I was proposing to this corporation, hey, let's open up an office that the community can use. Let's give it to the community. And then that started to expand to not spending marketing dollars on wasteful projects, shopping carts, postcards. I mean, things that my industry has just steeped in for 25 years. So I just finally, I had no choice. I was backed into a corner, and I was just so unhappy that I went out on my own. And at the same time, Side kind of started coming up, and that's a whole other conversation. But I joined Side, which gave me some independence while allowing me to have brokerage structure. And that part's pretty invisible. The Side portion of it's pretty invisible. It's amazing on its own. But what I did was I opened up a co-working space in my community, and I donate it to anybody in the community who needs it for free. So anyone who comes and knocks on my door and needs a place to work, anyone starting a business, anyone starting a startup, anyone with a baby at home, anyone with like mompreneur, basically anyone, nonprofit, anyone can use my space, no questions asked, no strings attached. It's just an open door policy. And so that really got me thinking, okay, the average realtor in an expensive marketplace, if they're good, they're spending $100,000 a year minimum, and more, all the way up to much more. And I'm finding that a lot of it goes in the garbage. Postcards
that's
are
all
trash.
wasted spend.
It's all wasted spend. And so now I'm paying for this office out of my marketing budget. And I feel like, okay, I'm really giving to the community. I'm doing something useful with my marketing dollars. And it's just started to bleed over into everything that I'm doing, kind of making myself ask myself, hey, does this marketing spend benefit someone in my community? And if the answer is yes, I do it. And I've cut way back on, the shameless self-promotion dollars like the postcards. And I really have sort of just started becoming passionate about serving my community, like in a really real way, but like maybe I can show other realtors, look, you can do something with your marketing dollars that builds your presence and builds your brand name and your credibility and your sphere, which is what a realtor should be doing, in a
That
way that
is
really helps
that
people.
is ridiculously cool, by the way, because like I told you we're like, you know, eyeballs deep in the real estate market and one of my friend's business. So we're talking about that kind of stuff all the time. It is incredibly unique and very powerful. And one of the things that I know he coaches real estate agents on all the time is the best way to grow your business as a real estate agent is to be the community connector, right? To be that person that everyone, you know, that knows you're there, that knows you know the area, and that you know all the things that are going on. You're the connector and the you know, he talks a lot about, you know, starting local podcasts and doing things like that. So everyone in the community knows that you're the real estate agent to go to. But you're taking that like to a whole nother level where you're actually providing for the community, which is super, super cool.
So right now I've been open about a year, and thank you, because when I started it, like, you know, I was in here painting walls, kind of crying, like pulling Amazon boxes from my house to the office and just thinking, what are you doing? You're going nuts. Like, everybody's going to be like, this girl went off the rails. And I do actually feel that way in my marketplace. Like, I don't think other realtors have really hopped on board to be like, hey, this is so cool. The community has. So I'm like, either they don't know what I'm doing, or they don't get it, or they're jealous. I'm not sure. But, you know, there
So
are times when I'm like, you know, I still feel really alone in doing it, but then I'm also still very committed to doing it.
yeah, you know, they say the people who are innovating are, you know, the ones that are out front, right? They're you're by yourself, which is the way that goes. But I guess the $1 million question, has that impacted your GCI, right? Has it actually increased the sales volume that you're doing?
I would say immediately the answer to that would be no, but in a very soft way, it's a yes. Also, I'm in a pretty conservative market and a very like old money type of community where the brands that are here have been here for a while. And then, of course, any realtors listening, like, you know, Compass swept through, just a mega corporation kind of gobbling everyone up.
Yeah.
And I kind of went on my own right when the mega corporation was eating everyone up. So like while the big machine became the popular thing to do, I just kind of stepped out on my own thinking like, I'm going to wait this out. I'm going to wait this out over here. And meanwhile, like my heart's beating, I'm totally petrified. And now though, I mean, my door is closed. I have a sign on the door. There's 6 people working, a graphic designer, an architect, a friend of mine who's a mom who just likes to get away from her kids. So my co-working space is full and busy every day. And, you know, I come in and I see people here and I'm like, wow, my idea works. And most people in the community I think will tell you that at this point in time, like especially in my generation, I'm definitely the most famous realtor in the area. So I
Yeah,
think like
yeah,
getting
and
that.
it's a longer play, right? You're not playing for marketing dollars today equals sales tomorrow,
Well,
right?
and
You're
I'm
looking
super
at dollars
sensitive
today
to,
equals
yeah, and
you
I'm
brand.
very, very, right. And I'm very sensitive to not making people feel sold to. And so I think
Hmm.
I'm hanging back a lot more than I would with, you know, it's like a very fine line. Like I want to be hospitable, like food, ink, Wi-Fi, snacks, coffee, like everything is included. Like you come here and it's like everything I have is yours. Everything I have, you can even sit at my desk if I'm not here. Everything I have is yours. But at the same time, I don't want it to feel like very transactional, like you're coming here and then I'm marketing to you, right? So I'm really like hanging back and just telling myself, be patient, like it's working, and things are
Yeah.
starting to roll in. But I'm not
So
bankrolling anything yet.
my first thought, and I don't know how this plays out, but one of the things that Zach, who's my a guy who does the real estate coaching, recommends for like the local podcasters who are using podcasting to do something similar, right, to become a name in the community, is he just regularly has you know, you have a message that just says, hey, if you or anyone you know is, you know, looking to do a real estate transaction, make sure you send them my way, right? It's a really soft call to action kind of thing. Just
Right.
so people are aware that that's a thing that you do, which I'm sure with what you're doing, it's probably there already. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out over the long term, because I imagine that'll have quite an impact in the community.
I'm hoping it does, and I'm hoping that it provides me with proof of concept that I could start maybe regionally just opening up little micro offices where it's like, okay, let me open up a micro. And in the Bay Area where commute is such a concern and property
Hmm.
values are such a concern, I mean, to join a co-working space around here is $700 a month. I'm giving that away for free to people who need it.
Yeah.
I would love to open more like little micro offices and just be like, hey, you're welcome to come in. And then I also started a moving guide for the area. So it's been a very busy year, just sort of thinking to myself, okay, if I'm going to claw out this space for myself and I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do all the things. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to actually like be seen as like, hey, look at this girl. She's doing this stuff. She cares about the community. Like all this stuff is being built. And then just kind of getting that momentum to getting it noticed.
Absolutely. So it's a really interesting story for how you've gotten started in the area here. My next question for you has to do with your superpower, right? So this is the way I've been framing this recently. It's what you do, build our offices world. It really helps solve problems for people. But if you look at your set of skills that you have, there's probably a lot of things that you're pretty good at. And what we've been talking about is your superpower it's the one thing that sort of connects them all together, the one that introduces all of your skills. And curious if you've thought about that, or if you have an idea what you think your superpower is, that one thing that you bring to the table that really lets you, light everything up in your business.
Okay, so I think that the superpower is that I'm really good at creating space for people. Like as a realtor, like I don't want to sell them the house and hand them the key. I want them to like feel like they're part of the community, right? And so it's like, come to this event, like forget about your house. Like I'm so tired about houses. Like I don't really care about your house. You're a person and you're moving. And so like kind of creating space and making sure that people are connected socially, figuring out where to pick up their dry cleaning, and just stuff like, okay, where do I go get my manicure? Or like, what's the deal with preschools? Like just really remembering that real estate is about people and it's not about houses.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
I think,
that's a thing that I think a lot of real estate agents forget, right? You're not in the business of selling homes; you're in the business of moving people into communities,
correct, or out for that
or
matter.
out of communities into another community, right?
Yeah,
uh,
and that's the thing. It's like people always talk about, well, I'm an expert on the neighborhood. I'm like, I don't really care about the neighborhood, because really, like this family, they have dogs, they have kids, they're moving, they still have to work. Like there's so much going on that has nothing to do with the house.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna be interested more in, like, when you move to an area, where's the cool dog park that I can take the dogs to, and like you were saying out here in St. Louis, what are the cool places we can take the kids
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
I think, and a lot of this compassion, it stems from me being a military brat. So it's like, I know what it's like to move
Hmm.
and pack up and unpack and try to make friends. And like you feel alone, and then you're confused. And then 2.5 years later, you're like, oh, I'm getting into the groove of this. And it's like, well, I don't
And
want
you got
that
to
to
do it
take
all
two and a
again,
half
right?
years. Yeah. And then you're doing it all again. So for me, it's like just making sure that people feel included and connected. And that's the superpower.
Yeah, that's a really interesting superpower, and it's also one that I don't think a lot of people have, right? It's not a lot like that people really understand that the relationship sort of background to what it is that you do, right? And how you get in and actually really, because you can't just know the things. You have to like really care about the people, and you have to get to know them, and find out what it's actually important to them, so you can make connections that are going to help them, build their life in this new place.
Yeah, and even just a little bit faster. Like it's for me, it's like facilitating the speed of feeling comfortable of where you are.
Yeah. So I don't know how common buyer's remorse is in real estate, because it's such a big purchase. But I'm curious if you feel like what you do for people and helping them get into the community helps reduce that feeling of like, oh, I can't believe we just moved to this community, or that we bought this house, or that kind of stuff. Do you think that that really helps with some of that stuff?
I'm going to say I do. And then I actually have had prospects and friends who have called me after using another realtor, and they've had some remorse, and they're like, what do we do? And I try to be the bigger person, but usually I tell them that they need to call their realtor. But with my clients, like I love buyers, and I will always tell them, I will drag them out to 20-30% more houses than they want to see, because I'm like, look, when you make this decision, I want you to know that you looked at this neighborhood and that neighborhood and that neighborhood. And sometimes I'll just take them somewhere wild, like, hey, let's just triple check that you don't like it over here. So I actually love being out with buyers. So I'm going to say that buyer's remorse is pretty low with my clients. But it's not infrequent that I get a call from someone who accidentally used another realtor, and then they're asking me like how to fix things, of which I obviously cannot.
Yeah, that's not uncommon when your superpower really hits that nail on the head for them. But yeah, it's an interesting thing for especially because like with real estate, it's such a huge purchase, and it's such a life-changing thing for people.
And just last week, I bought tickets to a comedy show, and I invited 10 clients, and they're all friends of mine. There was a couple there that I sold a house to 7 years ago, and I'm like, hey, I'm still inviting you out. I still want you to get to know this person. I still want you to make friends here. Like, let me introduce you to these people. Like, I'm still with my clients, like even half a decade later, if they want me to be there.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's probably one of my favorite things about the real estate profession is that it's like it's professional relationships, right? You have to be really, really good at it. And so it's interesting that's your superpower. So the other side of your superpower is your fatal flaw, right? So for our audience here, most of them are entrepreneurs building their businesses in some way or shape or form. Your fatal flaw is, like Superman has his kryptonite, something that you have struggled with in the growth of your business. And more importantly than what the flaw is, but how have you been dealing with that yourself, or other people who might suffer from something similar, they might learn from you?
I answered this for myself on the very first podcast I ever listened to of yours. And so I really hate to answer it, because every time you ask a guest, I'm like, oh, I hate my fatal flaw. And it really is like, I hate my fatal flaw, because every time you ask it, I like beat myself up.
It
for
reminds
a few minutes.
you.
It's that I'm a visionary, and I'm so passionate about having my vision that when people don't really see it the way I see it, I'm like, get on board, you idiots. And it's hard for me to like really deal with people who like don't see my vision. And that's a lot, right? When you're out on your own.
Yeah.
And so I think for me to kind of maintain like my own cheerful attitude, and to like, I can't fault people because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And that just sounds so presumptuous, but that's my fatal flaw, is that when I see this vision, and for me it's so complete and beautiful and flowing and like big and like ever growing, that when other people don't see it, I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I don't even stop to consider that like maybe something's wrong with me. I could possibly be a little off my rocker, but it's working out.
I like that, off your rocker.
My instant reaction is like, what's wrong with you? Like, how come you don't see all of this? And I have to remember that, like, not everyone sees all of this, which is why I'm out here doing it and creating it and living it and risking it. But it's so hard for me to kind of like rein that in And like sometimes I get a little testy about it.
No, I totally get that. Like it's probably more common than you think for entrepreneurs because we tend to be visionary people. And like I know, for instance, like my mom and dad, greatest people in the world. I love them to death, and they love me. And I was definitely raised in a great home. But when I try to tell them like the things that I'm doing and how we're doing them, I generally get either blank stares or "you're crazy."
Oh
Right?
yeah,
So.
I get so many people who are like, why don't you just charge for your co-working space? I'm like, oh, should I charge you? And they're like, well, not me because I can't really afford it. And that's the thing. People at my co-working space, they can't afford to go somewhere else. They can't afford to rent an office. They would be at a coffee shop like me. But that's like one of the primary things. It's like, well, why don't you just charge? I'm like, so why don't I just erase like the primary part of the entire vision? And I kind of joke. I'm like, okay, I'll charge you. And they're like, well, I mean, I'm really enjoying it here. Like, I don't want you to charge me, but I'm like, maybe you could charge other people.
Just all of my friends that are next to me, you can charge all of them. Yeah, but it's that difference between someone who's, and what's interesting too is even if you're talking to another person who's a visionary, they won't always see your vision, right? Because they have their own they're working towards. So it's that whole thing where it can be lonely lonely when you're pushing for something and innovating in a space. So my curiosity then is, what have you been doing to sort of help curb that and and make that a better response, or not feel so lonely in the journey that you're doing?
Well, I think finally now it's like it's coming around and I'm getting a little more feedback that it's working. Like I've had somebody approach me to buy and help their parents buy and sell, and I'm like, oh, that's a clear-cut example of this working. And I'm starting to get more solid, clear-cut examples of it working. But the first year, for sure, like I constantly have to remind myself, like, breathe and be patient, and like don't, like, I don't know who it was, maybe Einstein, like everybody gives up just before they succeed. Right. So I'm like, okay, just look it out a little longer. Like you're already invested this much. And then I also really struggle because like I want to expand, and I'm like, I want the bigger co-working space and I want to do this and that. But I'm trying to just like really tell myself like everything that I'm doing is working well, and that I should just like enjoy it at this point.
Yeah. And for those of our guests who are listening, if in case you missed it, one of the things that's really important when you're pushing towards a vision and you have that sort of lonely feeling is to look at the early results and see them and remind yourself that, hey, this is what we're doing, where we're going. And someone who's been there myself, right? I'm 10 years into my business now, and I get to a point where I'm pretty well known in my space, and people come to me and they're like, hey, I'm excited to get to talk to you, right? Now, if you go back 10 years ago, the first couple of years, you never have any of that stuff happen. So it's a lot easier as you get further into that journey to realize, that people will start to see your vision eventually.
Well, and I do think like if you're on the cutting edge of stuff, which I kind of pride myself of being, a lot of it by necessity, is that when other people start like it's not that they're not seeing what you're doing. It's like that they're behind the curve, most of the people. And so like as people are sort of evolving themselves, and like younger generations, I'm not that young, I'm not that old, I'm 42. But like just seeing kind of like this second wave of people that are like growing up in technology, and you start to feel less alone because you start bumping into each other, like me and you.
Yeah. Because you're finding other people who are doing similar cool things in their businesses and making a change, making an impact. Cool.
Right.
So next question for you has to do with your common enemy, right? So common enemy has to do, is framed in terms of your clients, right? When you bring in a new client to either, help them buy a home or sell a home, if you could wave a magic wand and sort of remove a mindset or something similar that's really holding your clients back, that you feel like you could really help them more if they could just change this thing, something you sort of, running your head into the wall kind of thing over and over again with your clients, what is something that you sort of run into that you have to fight against all the time in your business?
I think just that, real estate's a very social business. And so everyone has a friend who's a realtor and maybe 7 of them.
Yeah.
But when it comes to choosing a professional, so many people will like choose their neighbor, or you'll see somebody with an ethnic background choose someone of another ethnic background that's similar. And kind of the markers for like how people choose their realtor, they're not really based on reality. They're not based on skill set. They're not based on track record. I mean, a lot of time, like a bulk of the time. And she hasn't sold any houses.
Yeah, and
I mean, and that's throughout my industry.
yeah, and it's an interesting space too, because so many people, like the barrier to entry to become a real estate agent is not that high, which means there are a lot of real estate agents, but the barrier to be a good real estate agent is really high. Right, like the I can't remember what the exact numbers are, but it's something like in any given market, only 1% of the realtors do something like 90% of the transactions.
So
Uh,
in my
uh,
market, 400 realtors are licensed, and in 2018, only 63 of them sold more than 2 houses.
yeah, like it's insane the disparity between being a realtor and actually someone who's closing transactions. So to your point, having as someone who is um, uh, selling houses, if you could get all of your clients to just understand, like, here's how you actually hire a good realtor, would be a major boon.
It would be. It
So
really would be.
so my curiosity is, do you deal at all with that in your marketing efforts on like educating the public, so to speak, on what it looks like to be a good realtor and someone who's actually got a track record of closing deals and getting people moved into homes?
So I think because I've taken such a medium hard stand on not producing junk marketing, it's been a little difficult for me to do that because I'm really trying to focus on demonstrating like, hey, I'm doing it. Like, take a look. Like, I'm supporting all of this, and it's with my realtor income.
Yeah.
I actually, I haven't, and I've thought about it, or like, selling yourself against the competition. Like, hey, I'm an independent and private service versus the team name in town. But yeah, and I mean, you're not getting that from postcards. I mean, they're going to see
No.
your face, but I'm like, okay, let me get these 100, and it's like the whole shift into micro marketing. Let me get these 100 people, like, where I really know them and they really know me, for that sort of, rather than let me send out 20,000 postcards a month and it goes in the trash. When I get a postcard from a realtor, I just laugh and shake my head, and I'm like, wow, that's someone's grandma.
Oh, man. That's funny.
And I'm very opinionated, but I think you have to be to stay true to that vision.
Absolutely. So the other side of that then is if your common enemy is something that you fight against, your driving force is what you fight for, right? Just like Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you fight for? What's your mission with your real estate company?
I really want people to start choosing the service provider who's providing a service. And I really want people to see, like, if I'm serving the community, that I should be serving the community. And for me, I would love to just show that to other people, to like really start making a different kind of footprint on this industry, just for climate stuff and logic, and like, let's just evolve an industry that really needs to be evolved. But it's like just really showing people, like, hey, you're getting service, but you're also getting service, like, as a community.
Yeah. So
And
you're actually, so changing the face of the real estate market, where it's not just someone who's buying and selling homes, but it's actually being a community servant, a community leader in that way.
Yeah, and I think we have an obligation to. I don't think this is something that I'm choosing to do. I mean, anybody with $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 budget, I think they should be answerable to what they're doing with it. I just think they should. It's time for that. And it's time to like take that dollar volume and like really say, like, this is what I'm doing with it, and it means something. It's not shameful, shameless. Those are interchangeable. That was Freudian.
Shameless self-promotion. Yeah.
Shameless self-promotion, creating garbage at a time in history where, we're all ready to be done with the garbage.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for my own personal future, I hope that goes really well for you, because I think it sounds like a glorious change in the real estate market. Because again, it's a space I know pretty intimately, and I know that it is ripe for change. And a lot of people think it's going to come from technology, and what I'm hearing you say is that it's going to come from servant leadership that's powered by technology, which is, I think, a really cool, fresh take on that industry.
We might have to do some real estate growth hacking together.
Absolutely. So I want to transition a little bit, talk more practically. This our section of the show is called the Hero's Tool Belt, right? Maybe you got a big magical hammer like Thor, or a bulletproof vest like your neighborhood police officer, or maybe you just really love how Evernote lets you organize everything. What are some of the practical tools you use on a daily basis to really manage and work your business, right? When it comes to either, keeping track of leads, following up with them, or, making sure your deals get, moved through the stages properly. What's something you just couldn't live without today to manage your business?
I mean, I have to say, like, everything I have comes from the internet. I'm one way, shape, or form. Especially, I have a virtual assistant, which is incredible. I was petrified to hire her, and now I'm like, wow, I don't know how anyone gets by
live without her.
One. Yeah, and really, it's like just social media, the access to social media. I mean, it's not free. You have to pay to play. But, I mean, no one, especially me, could build any of this. Like, I wouldn't have even been able to get awareness out on any of it without social media, which, we all kind of love to hate. But really, it allows people who are, like, passionate and consistent and driven to create something. And yeah, there's like so many bumps in the road, and there's so much crap you have to go through, and there's so much trial and error, and it's so Wild West, and you don't know who you can trust, like the service provider. But like, if you do it, and if you slog through it, and if you're reasonably intelligent and just like keep tweaking and trying and pushing, like, you can build anything you want. And I mean, yeah, I guess that's the American dream, like going all the way back in time. But like for us now with this I think that that's the toolkit to have, is your social media skill set.
Yeah, I call this the golden age of business because everything is so accessible nowadays, right? Everything from, like, you and I are chatting, we're halfway across the country chatting live on a video
Yeah.
recording thing here, which is super cool, all the way down to, like, if you want to get a physical product business going and order, custom made products from China or India or here in the United States even, you can do that, right? Like, I've got a supplement company that we run that our minimum orders for custom made supplements are like 12 bottles, right? 10 years ago it was 2,000.
Right.
um,
Yeah. So it's incredible, and it's still scary, and it's still confusing, and it's still kind of a jungle. But you can do it from your home. You can do it with kids. You can do it pregnant. I mean, that's, I'm home
or
with my
like us,
daughter.
4 kids in a
You're
40-foot
out on
RV
your
while
own.
traveling, right?
Yeah, and so, like, let's talk about barrier to entry. Yeah, in real estate it's pretty low, but online, if you're smart and you're dedicated and you really believe in what you're doing, then the barrier to entry is also technically pretty low.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to talk about your own personal heroes a little bit, right? So just like Frodo had Gandalf, or Luke had Obi-Wan, or Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad, who were some of your heroes? Were they real life mentors, speakers, authors, peers who may be a couple years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in your business?
I have also answered myself, like, and thought about this listening to your podcast before. I don't know if, like, something's wrong with me, but usually I find myself so far ahead of the curve that the people that really drive me are the people that I become disappointed in, where, I just am finally like, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to do it another way, and I'm going to do it a better way. You push me to my limits. I just can't operate this way anymore. So I kind of find, like, that really, like, the disappointment part will fuel me a lot faster than the inspiration part. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually, it's an interesting take, because I've heard that before a little bit, where it's the thing that inspires you is, like, so, and this has come up a couple of times in discussions on the show, that, like, we'll put people up as a hero in our own lives because they've influenced us, but that
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is infallible or perfect in any way. It's just, like, sometimes you realize that, like, hey, I'm looking forward to this person, and you realize that, like, once you get closer to them, either in stature or in relationship or other things, you realize they're just as human as you are, and that can be a driving force as well.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, if you want to, like, go all the way back, like, one of my childhood. Did you ever read A Clan of the Cave Bear or any of that series?
I did not.
There's this series, this Neanderthal girl, and she loses her whole family in an earthquake, and then there's a series of, like, 6 fantasy realism type books, and she goes from being, like, 3 years old, and she grows up and, like, into being a woman, but she's just sort of out there, like, in the world, very innovative. And I've loved her since I was a little girl and sort of identified with that. So I think that, if anything, she might be my hero. But yeah,
That's
I
cool.
think,
You
like,
called that
I
Clan of
just
the
really,
Cave Bear?
it's called Clan of the Cave Bear. If you have daughters, especially as reading it,
Yeah,
it's
I have three
very,
daughters, so.
yeah, I love it. I mean, I started reading them when I was about 10, but I really just admire people, which I may save for the next question when you ask me for a referral. I admire people who are just sort of innovative, and I'm like, wow, like, what they're doing hasn't been done before. But a lot of times, to figure that out about someone, you have to start to get to know them a lot better, because a lot of us, we're all in our own world, sort of, like, pushing forward for what we're,
Yeah, to that point
driving. And
earlier, you
so,
can't always see their vision until you get to know them close enough so
yeah,
they can paint it for you.
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So let's bring it home for our listeners. Talk a little bit about your guiding principles. Top 1 or 2 principal actions that you use regularly on a daily basis that you think contribute to both the success and influence that you enjoy in your business today. maybe something you wish you had known when you started out in your real estate career?
For me, it's definitely so. Bold is the new neutral is one of my company mottos, and I spent
That's
so much
good.
time like I like it. Thank you. I spent a lot of time like trying to fit into a box, right? In my industry, everyone's like painting houses gray and working for companies with serious logos, and then I just really at one point was like, I can't do this career without being me. And so now it's like everything's colorful and cheerful and a little bit in your face. And just, I'm like very self-aware about like not putting myself into a box, because it's like, okay, I just want to go out and find those people who want that. And, you know, it's really scary because I'm in a conservative business.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I'm just constantly asking myself is like, is this good? Even if it's a little bit wilder or more colorful than what people are accustomed to, like, you know, if it meets those criteria of being good and like coming from a good place in my heart, then I do want it to have my like stamp of creative self-expression.
Yeah, I really like that whole bold is the new neutral thing, because it goes all the way back to like something Einstein said, where he's like, if everyone else is doing it, it's probably wrong, right? And
Yeah.
not necessarily that it's wrong, but just that it's not going to get the attention of the market, right? And so if you look like and act like everyone else in the market, you are just part of the noise, right? And you have to stand out a bit.
And I think a lot of it just comes from fear, right? Like we're afraid that people won't like it, and so we don't do it. But it's, you know, at the same time, like I'm showing houses all the time, and buyers are confused because every house is painted gray. But really, like
Yeah.
when it comes to decorating a house for market, someone's afraid to paint a wall green because they're afraid someone's not going to like it. And it just sort of all boils down to like we're neutralizing everything to the base level. And
Yeah.
everyone's just so afraid to deviate from it because they feel like it's just been proven to be successful. And I'm like, oh my God, my head's going to explode if I have to
So I
stay.
have I have an interesting question for you on that, just on that very specific topic of prepping a home for showing, right? In one of the things that my wife and I used to do just for fun because we thought it was cool was we had a luxury neighborhood near where we grew up, and it was like 5-acre buy-ins and big mansions and all that stuff. And they always, the realtors there always had open houses on the weekend with cookies and whatnot. So we always used to go to the big open houses and look at the mansions. And one of the things I noticed in one particular house, right, and this comes to your whole idea of bold is the new neutral, is the whole house, the decorations and everything were very, very, I don't know what the word would be. They were very bold, right? And they were like custom paintings and like custom like cut, like the person who lived there was an artist, and like custom tiles that they had put into, they carved into the walls and stuff like that. And my wife and I's thought was like, this is beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But for me, I was like, it felt like you would never want to touch the house because it was like artwork. And I'm curious where the
Yeah.
line is, do you think, between of like, hey, I want to be able to show someone a future in this house where they can make it their own, versus making it better than just bland and neutral, if that makes sense. Like, where do you sort of see that line?
I mean, you do have to be practical because not everybody wants, it's very personalized and you want the blank slate. But so for me, what I've done is I've just begged the stagers that I have a relationship with and begged and like, hey, like a little brighter, a little brighter. And I'm like, oh, still a little brighter. Like, hey, let's like add something fun. And so I've also started purchasing a lot of accessories on my own. And then also because you can't always carry it over into the house, I just try to be sure that I carry it over into my brand and like just let
Hmm.
people know like I don't have to be serious in presentation to be good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it's interesting because like you have a line to walk where it's like, I I want someone to see personality and life and boldness in the house and the staging, but at the same time be able to show them a future there. So you're saying you can bring some of that in with your presentation and with your personality as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. And, just making sure that, all of my events focus on community events, or like we went out for a comedy show. It's like, hey, let's make it fun. Let's make it light. Let's make it lively. My co-working space, which, sorry, the video wasn't working perfectly today. It's very bright. It's very vibrant. I mean, every room is a different color, but I still think it's tasteful. And a lot of people walk in and they're like, I wish my house looked like this. And I'm like, well, we can get to work. Like, we can do it.
Hey, that's the thing that people do in their houses too. People will keep their house like it's ready for sale in 10 years. And like, why don't you paint it now? You can always paint it neutral later.
True. I think that people just end up being a little bit afraid. So it's like, hey, it's not that serious. It's not that serious. Like, it's okay to live in a cheerful environment.
Yeah, and
like, we don't all live in gray houses.
Nice thing about paint too is if you paint it and you don't like it, you can paint over it.
That's true.
It reminds me of a story of our last RV. We painted the inside of it and redid it, and I asked my wife, I was like, what kind of colors do you think we should do? And she was like, oh, I trust you with colors, you do branding all the time. So I picked out a color scheme that I really liked and painted it all. And she came back and looked at it and she was like, yep, shouldn't have let you do that. I can't stand it. so she went with me to the store and we picked out new colors and repainted it. But yeah, it's it's not the end of the world. It's if you don't like the way it turns out, you can do it again.
You can do it again.
You can do it again. It's not that big a deal. So that's cool. So last part of this of our show, something we do on every show, I know you've already alluded to it, is our Heroes Challenge. It's pretty simple. Basically, do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story on our show?
Yeah, I do. So I met this woman, her name is Pamela, and she runs something called Gold Coast Chamber Players in the Bay Area. And, as you know, chamber music is heavily, it's an older demographic, people that enjoy it. But she is one of the most innovative entrepreneurs I've ever met. I mean, I feel like she's on par with me, just with like the scope and the breadth and the constant, like, let's evolve and try this and do that. And I mean, I'm not even the biggest fan of chamber music. I tried. I'm like, why is this song 22 minutes long? Like, I really just have a hard time getting into chamber music and classical music. And I've attended, and I still can't figure out why the songs are 22 minutes long. And I'm like, did one end? Did another one start? Like, what's happening here? But she is such a fascinating entrepreneur that I would hands down recommend meeting her, talking to her, because I've just never met anyone like her. Like, to me, it feels like a spirit animal, and that's not something I say very often ever in my life.
Well, that's super cool. Yeah, so we'll reach out after the show and see if we can get contact details. Maybe get her on the show. That'd be super cool. So last thing, thank you so much for coming on the show, Kristina. We really appreciate it. It's been a fun conversation. Where can people find you if they're interested in, if they're in the Bay Area or looking to move to the Bay Area? Where can they find you? And then I guess more importantly, who are the right type of people to reach out for your services?
So you can find me on the first 10 pages of Google, 3 different Instagram accounts, all over Facebook, 3 different web pages. I mean, I'm out there. So if you're looking for me, I'm not hard to find, Kristina McCann. But, my brokerage is Chroma Realty, Chroma, which is the Greek root word for color, Chroma Realty. And, I'd be happy to meet you for coffee or show you around, or, I love getting in the car and just kind of showing people the area. And the people that I want are the people who are like, yeah, why is this so serious? Like, let's go have fun. Let's spend $1 million.
Spend $1 million on a house in the East Bay, right?
Yeah, it's like, I don't mean to say it so flippantly, but like, yeah, you want someone to show you around, like parks and coffee and, this and that, and then also continue to show you around after you've moved here. Like, I mean, I'm a very fun girl, and this is kind of why I'm like, this box has to go away. These limits have to go away. Like, let's just all have fun.
Absolutely, I love it. So you heard her. If you're looking to move into the East Bay, or you're looking to change houses in the East Bay, or looking to sell something in the East Bay, reach out to Kristina McCann. It's chromarealty.com, and she's all over social media. You can look her up. And again, Kristina, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I really love what it is that you're doing in your space, and I hope it catches on.
Thank you so much. It's been as fun talking to you as listening to you, which it's a lot of fun listening to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're taking me away from all my real estate podcasts, because I usually log on and listen, and now I'm like, well, let's see. He's got another one. I love all the people that you're choosing, and I really like the vibe of you just kind of exposing people who are just interesting for no other sake than being interesting. Like, there's no real rhyme or reason except for like, hey, this is fascinating, and I really appreciate all of the shows I listen to.
That's what I've been going for, and like just in complete, like honesty, I had no idea. Like, I was like, when we first started the show, I was like, I'm not really interested in like a specific subset of entrepreneurs, or people who are in a specific place in their business, which I know a lot of the shows that are like this have, like, they're looking for specific types of people. I'm like, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the stories behind the kind of people who start businesses, right? And because it's a very specific type of person, and it spans the spectrum of people who are, everything from picking up trash to starting co-working spaces in big cities like what you're doing, right? It's just super cool to see all the cool things that people are doing. And I do the show selfishly because I really enjoy talking to people, so I'm glad other people enjoy it.
No, I really do enjoy it, and you are sucking up most of my podcast time these days, but that's okay.
That is good to hear. So do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience before we hit the stop record button?
I mean, please just follow your heart, even if you're in an industry that feels standard, because there are people out there who will appreciate it.
Awesome. You heard her. Follow your heart. Again, thank you so much, Kristina, for coming on.